Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 114. The storm was quieter from our vantage point. We had stolen past one of the minor gates Stannon had located before the desert winds had come to full force. The wind and dirt had darkened the sky. Those with sense had abandoned their posts and made straight away for shelter. Stannon closed the door, immediately shutting off the rumbling outside. Eve sat in the corner of the entryway, seemingly talking to herself. Perhaps she was practicing her dialect. We had agreed that she would need more practice if she were to come off believable. And her clothes, we would have to find replacements for the strange garb she wore. The bands of color gathered around her wrists. She spoke quietly, such that I could not hear more than a whisper. After we had appeared near the town, I had felt shaken and disoriented. How could we have simply ceased to be in one point and then appear in another? Such a thing was not possible. It defied my understanding of reality. I still felt a strong pull to Eve. She made me feel fire in my veins when she gathered my hand in hers, but I had seen things no human was prepared for. My mind still wandered to the image of the giant, unblinking metallic eye that I had seen in the darkness beneath the temple. It was as if reality itself had been ripped apart to reveal this truth to me. Like a veneer simply pulled aside, I had witnessed an abomination. As if seeing through eternity, I had seen the very visage of a god. I had been concentrating on the mundane to keep myself busy, but the image had frozen to the marrow of my bones. If this thing existed, could it reach across the very fabric of time and space to touch me? Would my existence simply cease if such a thing were to occur? I stood mutely staring at the wall of the inn we had rushed into after entering the city. Stannon shook me from my reverie. "Time to move, lad." Looking me in the eye, Stannon said, "It's best not to linger on the fantastic. Our minds will simply not make sense of such events. Don't lose your head." Shrugging off, Stannon moved across the silent tap room and headed towards the kitchens. Guests would have taken refuge in their rooms. Perhaps he could find the innkeeper in the kitchens. The heavy shutters clattered as the wind rattled against the windows. Only a few lamps had been lit. Shadows flitted across the room as the candles shuddered in their casements. Stannon banged his hand on the length of the bar, demanding an answer. "Ho, bartender! Good innkeep!" No reply came. With casual ease, Stannon kicked in the door to the kitchen, sending a booming clatter as dishes crashed to the floor. Curses sounded amid a series of shouts. "Are ye daft? Find cover, man!" Stannon looked down to regard a group of cooks and the innkeeper, a thickly mustached man crowding for cover. Looking back to the rumbling shutters and then back to the kitchen, Stannon looked askance at the burly man. "You'd think the whole town was going to blow over." Stannon waited for a response. Not getting any other than shouts from him to close the door, Stannon continued. "Rooms. Do you have any left?" "Sand blot out my eyes and strike me dead. Are you deaf? Get to shelter and close the damn door." Letting the door swing back, Stannon turned on his heel, angry shouts following from the red-faced innkeeper. "He said to take the best room in the house." Eve rose to her feet unsteadily, still not looking at Stannon or me. I wanted to reach out to her, but I decided not to. Something held me back. Stannon led the way up the stairs towards a long hallway filled with rooms. Eve and I followed in silence. I was still in my head over what had happened. Eve reached out tentatively and covered my hand in hers. I smiled, sharing a glance with her before she looked away again. She still held my hand clasped to hers. Up ahead, I saw Stannon knock on a door. After no response came, he kicked it in and moved inside without missing a beat. A stream of curses came before they abruptly cut off with a gasp. I was afraid what we would find upon entering. Stannon casually dragged out the body of a middle-aged man, depositing him at the end of the hallway in a heap. The man looked unconscious, but I chose not to inspect closely. We followed him into the room, and Stannon threw the bolt over the door before turning to rummage through the provisions the previous occupant had left there. All right, tell us where we are, Stannon said, looking over to Eve. I do not know. Her voice was barely a whisper. She looked withdrawn. She looked away and returned to the edge of the room, hugging herself. Do not try my patience, woman. If you do not know, you will help me find out. When the storm abates, we leave. I will search for clothes where she can wear to blend in, I said insistently. Take no more than an hour. After that, I will leave. His tone made it clear that I would be there at the appointed time. I knew what Stannon was capable of. He could snuff out my life like a candle should he no longer see the profit in my company.